COVID vaccine. Yes, that's all I have to say, COVID vaccine. The hottest topic you will hear about on all platforms. Now, as you hear these words, I'm sure you have all sorts of thoughts regarding this topic. But in all honesty, I want today's conversation to focus on minorities' response to the vaccine. In a report released by CDC on May 11th, it says that 63% of whites have received at least one dose of the vaccine, 13% of Hispanics, 9% are Black, 6% Asian, 1% American Indian, Alaska Native, and less than 1% Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander. This data speaks for itself. It shows that the number of minorities receiving the vaccine are significantly lower. So why is this so? We're going to tackle this on today's show.
House with Pauline with Ototola Realty Group. I have this beautiful Perry home in the Richmond area, and I would love for you to come right in. Let me show you this home. This beautiful Perry home is located in the Richmond area in the beautiful master plan community of Aliana. It is huge. It is 4,192 square feet. 5 bedrooms, 5.5 baths with a split 3-car garage. It has a media room, game room, front courtyard with a fireplace, and a stucco exterior. We also have the option to upgrade to a spice kitchen. This home also depicts an Italian villa, so it is filled with the works. If you're looking for a luxury home with family-friendly neighborhood, this is the home for you. We also have some great inventory homes that I directly work with the builder to be able to negotiate some great deals for you. I look forward to making your real estate dreams a reality. Contact me today. All right, thank you so much, guys. I hope you love this beautiful home. It's a beautiful Perry home, and I'm so glad that you had open house with me, and I can't wait to serve you guys' needs. As you can see, I am a local Houston realtor. I do residential, I do commercial, leasing, and for the greater Houston area, I'm here to serve your needs at any time. Give me a call. My call number is 346-702-4775, or email me or find me on Instagram at Ototola Realty Group. I would love to be your realtor, and I can't wait to talk to you soon.
Welcome back to the show. You're watching Conversations with Nia. So we're back again. We're going to be talking about COVID vaccine and minorities. What's going on? Why are minorities not taking the vaccine, or why are they taking the vaccine? We're going to unpack that. Joining me now is my robust panel. I'm super excited to have them on. First, we have Dr. Nelson Aluya. Dr. Nelson Aluya is a medical doctor based in New Jersey. He's also the president of NAPAC USA, the Nigerian American Public Action Committee. Dr. Nelson, welcome. It's so great to have you on.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. And it's NAPAC, the Nigerian American Public Affairs Committee. NAPAC.
Public Affairs Committee. Thank you so much. And next we have Connie Leon. Connie is the founder of Houston Latina Blogger. She is a champion in the Houston Latina community. Connie, thank you so much for joining it. I'm so glad to have you on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
And last but definitely not the least is Chris Terrell. Chris is a real estate entrepreneur based here in Houston, Texas. And Chris is very passionate about the Black community, and he's going to go all in. He's definitely going to leave no stones untouched. Chris, welcome. It's so great to have you on.
It's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me again. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Let's go right into it. I'm going to go right into the first question. And I'm going to go with you, Chris, first off, right? So according to the data that I mentioned earlier, CDC has a report that came out and said as of May 11th, 9% of Black people have had at least the first dose of vaccine. When you compare that to white, which is 63%, that's relatively low. Chris, why is it? Why are Black people and minorities at large not taking the vaccine? What is the problem here?
There's a lot of trust issues. There's a lot of history. that hasn't been, I guess, spoken about or resolved between the Black community and kind of the history of the medical profession. There's been a lot of atrocities and different situations that happen with the medical community and the Black community as far as historically. And I believe a lot of those things being in the back or sometime in the front of Black people or people of color, not just Black people, but people of color's minds, it makes them a little hesitant to just jump right into things that medical professionals may tell them.
Okay. Give us some examples of this lack of trust, right? You said in the healthcare, give us very basic description there. Any specific example that you can pull from, Chris?
Well, yeah, just one, the slave trade.
Okay.
It in itself was a medical experiment against Black and white women between the birth, the getting better at birthing children. They were experiment, of course, on the Black women to better their practices. You have things such as the Tuskegee experiment, where syphilis was given untreated to Black males for some 40 years. And there's just a number of things. Dr. Charles Drew, who came up with a better way to implement blood transfusions or to store the blood used for blood transfusions, died or lost his life because he wasn't able to go into a hospital because of the color of his skin. So those type of issues cause a serious amount of distrust. And I think sometimes it's not just that they won't happen anymore. It's not that just you have to pull the knife out. You have to heal the wound. And in those cases, the knife may have been pulled out. Those things may not be occurring anymore, but there was nothing there to heal the wound. No apology given, no explanation given. So there's always that bit of distrust between the Black community, Black women, especially what they go through compared to what their counterparts may experience in hospitals with gynecologists, doctors, etc. So there's just doesn't seem ever to be the knife maybe get pulled out, but there's never any, for lack of better terms, neosporin put on the wound to help it heal. And we're just expected to accept it. And people are getting past that point where they're just going to accept things on face value because so many bad experiences have happened or taken place.
Very, very, very deep, very powerful words and good context, Chris. Connie, I want to go to you, Connie. So you've heard all of Chris said, for Black people, there's a lot of lack of trust towards the government. Then explain the data when it comes to Hispanics. It's saying it's 13%. It's relatively low, again, when you compare it to white counterpart, which is at 63%. So why is this, from your perspective as a champion in your community, why is this?
I think for me, I look at it from the immigrant perspective. Like my parents are immigrants. They English is not their first language. So when they look for information, they look for certain resources, they always look for them in Spanish. So there's always that lack of availability or miscommunication between English and Spanish. My parents will look to me sometimes to translate, to, find this information for them and make sure that they're doing the right thing. So even with the vaccine, with the COVID vaccine, my parents both sat and were like, is this something we should do? Like, what do you think? So I think for our community, it's not necessarily a lack of trust, but more so, I know that there is maybe a lack of trust. I think that comes in second to the language barriers and the availability of resources within our community. And then also the lack of maybe within your family. Like my parents have me, right? And if there's other families or other elderly people that don't have that resource, that don't have somebody who can help them appropriately and kind of let them know, hey, you know what, this is something you should do, or maybe this is something you should think about, or here's some information, let's kind of go through it together. I think that it's more of that, the lack of resources, the language barrier. And then secondly, I think would come in the trust issue, right? My mom had it in the back of her mind. She was like, is this something I can trust? Like they're saying all these things about the vaccine and how it's going to track me and this and that. So it's kind of doing away with those, myths or, kind of finding the information for her to where, number one, she understands everything in her language. And then number two, she can appropriately make the decisions for herself, because ultimately I can just provide that information. I can't make the decision for her.
Very well said. Dr. Nelson, as a medical professional, right, you're going to bring your perspective to the table. You've heard all the sentiments on the table. Chris is saying straight up lack of trust for the government. That's definitely political. And I know you dab your hands in politics here and there. And Connie here is saying lack of resources, language barrier. What are you thinking, Dr. Nelson? You have to unmute your mic.
I'll tell you this. Thank you. I stand on a peculiar platform where I'm both black, I'm an immigrant, I'm of African descent directly, and I'm also a medical professional. I'm an assistant professor of medicine. I'm also trained in pediatrics. So I've seen, all of it completely. I've practiced in 3 continents, and I see what it is when you talk about healthcare disparity. Chris right off the back said it. Slavery was huge, huge with all its connotations, big time. And the outcome or the natural or unnatural outcomes of slavery we're still living through till today, no doubt about that. If you take a history of everything that's affected us as Black people, people of color, from socioeconomic, religious, cultural, and even medicine, even finance, um, it's permeated all through our life. So I'll give you a typical example. Sickle cell disease was the first disease that was actually delineated where we could tell that the DNA affects diseases. But from 1909, when it was first recorded, up till maybe 4 or 5 years ago, nothing basically was done with sickle cell. Why? Because it's a black man's disease, so nobody cares. Now, if you talk about the Tuskegee and all those stuff, that come through, yes, all of those things has resulted in where we are today, to a point where they say irrespective of your socioeconomic status or level of education, as a black female, you are 4 times as likely to die as compared to a Caucasian female at childbirth. So all of those, we know the statistics. Now, when we come down to vaccines, and I'm glad to a large extent, because I always say this, for everything good, there are bad outcomes. For everything bad, there are good outcomes. So the good outcomes from COVID-19, a pandemic, is you and I using technology right now, where you're in Texas, I'm in Jersey, and Chris, wherever you are, in our living rooms, we're talking right now. And it has made it possible for us to have access to this point. Now, where am I coming from? Technology has made it possible to drive us to a point where we do not need CNN or BBC or Al Jazeera to go on to talk to one another, and you, Nia, to put your information out there so that each and every one of us who are taking leadership in our individual spaces, that members of our community will hear of us. Now, coming down to this, the difference then is this. I'll give you an analogy. The 1918 pandemic that happened, globally, about 50 to 100 million people died. In this country, 2.5 million people died. Now, in Nigeria, where I come from, with everything else, out of a population of, 30 million people then, about 500,000 people died. Now, today, how many people have died globally? 3.8 million people plus, and 588,000 people plus in this country, out of 330 million people. Now, why am I saying this? Again, we must understand how things have changed. Like Chris rightly said, they pulled the knife, but the wound is still there, hasn't been healed. But I'll ask one question. Who's going to help you heal that wound? Who's going to help put the bandage on it? We don't expect the Caucasians to do it, not the Chinese or the Japanese. We literally have to do that. As a people, we must begin to take ownership on that level itself, because nobody's going to help heal your wound. Nobody will, unless we do. Now, I'll tell you this. That's where I'm coming from with this one. I know there's a whole lot of distrust. I know there's a whole lot of issues going on. But you see, the difference now is this. With these vaccines, we are doctors who are standing on that platform, taking ownership and telling our people, please go take it. I myself, I'm a medical advocate, and I've been doing this, and yeah, you know that. We've been trying to talk to our community. It's okay. We don't trust these decisions and everything else. But look at your black doctors who are out there. We'll go into that, and especially I know you have other questions. We have black doctors now compared to 1939 when this whole thing started. How many black doctors did we have during the Tuskegee? None. But today things are different. So we
Dr.
must
Nelson,
begin
let
to
me
hear
come
us
in
and hear
here.
what we're saying.
Let me come in here. You make really good, excellent point, and I love that you're agreeing with Chris's sentiment and Connie's sentiment. So, what I want to gather from you now is you're saying, regardless of the lack of trust, regardless of lack of resources, the minority community should still push forward to get this vaccine ultimately. So, Chris, what do you think about that? Do you think it's easy for us to shift away from the lack of trust and go right ahead and get the vaccine?
Easy? You said easy to do? No. But anything worth doing is never going to be easy. We have to look forward to the hard fight instead of looking forward to an easy way out. And Dr. Nelson, it's a pleasure to meet you, but I'm upset. I wanted to argue with you today.
It's okay. Go ahead.
I got my
Go
I'm
ahead.
notes
actually,
here and
I'm actually
everything.
surprised too. I'm actually very surprised because he's out here agreeing with you, Chris.
Yeah, but that's what we need more of.
Right.
People like yourself, because if you say doctor to most people, black people, people of color, the word black people is so expansive, because an African American is one thing, but a black person is a different thing. You have
True.
black people in Africa, you have black people in Colombia, you have black people in Asia, you have black people in Mexico. You only have African Americans in America. So the global distrust of it is also something to look at, and the global availability of resources. But to kind of get on back on track, a lot of the distrust also comes from modern day things that medicine has done. The Ebola virus rips up the African continent, and
Okay.
it made it to America. And I mean, they locked this place smooth down. I mean, they caught the person, put him in a steel truck, made sure no one was exposed. I mean, they did contact tracing, because it's kind of like the thing. With drugs, it was fine when the African American or the poorer communities were addicted to the drugs. But once the drugs got into the suburbs, now they want to do something about it. Now it's a real war on drugs, not just a war on a community. But it seems sort of the same way. But again, what Dr. Nelson was saying, I mean, I love that you're on this side of it. And I'm in my first stage of having the vaccine. So I'm not like so totally against vaccinations that I'll
Okay.
just tell people not
Okay.
to get them. But I just wish that there was more explanation and more people like Dr. Nelson out there on this side of it to explain, because I have other conspiracies. I'm like, why is Bill Gates involved? He was a technology guy. Why is he in the medicine game now? I mean, all of those things create more conspiracy thoughts in a person's mind. Like, he knows
You know
nothing about
what,
medicine. I mean, unless he's
Chris?
just so,
You,
yes, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Chris, no, you're making a really good point. I want to dive right into the conspiracy, but we're going to take a quick break, and then
Okay.
we'll be right back.
No more fibroid, no more infertility, because Kenzie Elbows don't bring solution. She now fibroid blast, where they come out fibroid without surgery. Kenzie Elbows don't bring solution. I've been a fertility booster, where they increase chance of conception. Kenzie Elbows don't bring solution. No more delay, no more in-law wahala, hey. Kenzie Elbows don't bring solution. Kenzie Elbows, solution for all your infertility gbege. You feel reach them on top their Instagram at Kenzie Elbows. Or may you green them for 070-3977-3982 at Kenzie Elbows. Kenzie Elbows don't bring solution.
Welcome back. We're continuing on the conversation about COVID vaccine and minority community. My guests today have been going in on it and agreeing, surprisingly, which I thought they would never agree. I think, Chris, what really stood out for me is the fact that you've actually already taken the vaccine. So, because I was going to answer the question, so should people take the vaccine, Chris, from your perspective? But let me just throw that to Connie then. Connie, I don't know where you are. You don't have to say if you've taken or not. I know it can be very, hush-hush. But would you advise people, regardless of all the roadblocks and setbacks, to go ahead and take the vaccine?
So I think for me, I've been very public. As you know, I'm on social media, so I've been very public about the way I feel about this. I've even sat on a panel with the Harris County mayor's office for this exact thing, right? For us to discuss this. So I personally decided not to take the vaccine. As I stated, my parents came to me with the with trying to figure out if they would do it, and they have taken the vaccine, and actually them two and my two brothers have. And for me personally, I don't feel that it was something that I was going to do for myself. When it comes to vaccines as a whole, I have two small children, and they both get vaccinated regularly. I think that for them, it's very important. Me as an adult, I'm making my own decisions, and I know for myself what I want and don't want. But for like my children, like I said, they're fully vaccinated. If the vaccine becomes available for them, and their dad and myself decide that that's something that they need, then we'll definitely do that for them. I think that when it comes to this vaccine, being informed, just being as informed as you possibly can be, knowing that it's something that, you not necessarily that you have to believe in it, but you do in a way have to believe in it, right? I don't even get a flu shot some years, I really don't. I really don't. Right now I have like congestion and it's fully allergies. I mean, we live in Houston, so I like pop Zyrtec and I'm like, oh, I'm good to go, So and then I didn't get COVID, but people in my family did. And I did have somebody in Mexico who passed away from COVID. And still I stand with my decision to not take the vaccine, So I think that it just kind of depends on the person making that choice for yourself, not just, for me, it's not about following the crowd. Like just because, my aunts and all my uncles and my dad and my brother and everybody got the vaccine, I don't think that I should get the vaccine just because, everybody else has it. For myself, like I said, it's just a personal choice. If my parents were not going to get it, I would support them either way. I'm the one that like took them to the doctor's office to get it, So for me, it's a personal choice. And I think that if people are deciding to do it, then they should be informed, get all the information that you need to get.
If I may jump in here.
Okay. He wants to jump in. Okay,
I'll tell you this.
Jump in.
The most important thing within this dispensation, I'll say, is informed consent. It's not about following the crowd. It's about following the science. That's what's most important, and that's what's most paramount at that stage. And I'll tell you this: as long as you are alive, one way or the other, each and every one of us will get this COVID. One way or the other, as long as you're alive, you will get this COVID.
That's very bold coming from a doctor, Dr. Nelson.
Where are you going to get it? Are you going to get it in an established, precise, condition under healthcare system, or you're going to get it off the streets? Now, on either one, the other one, the healthcare establishment, we know what's going to happen. We know they're going to watch you, they're going to care, to make sure you're fine. They'll check your blood pressure and everything else before you go, and essentially make sure that you're good before you leave, and you have no adverse reaction. Or you're going to get, and we know the vaccine, once you get it, you most likely will not get sick. Or even if you do, you won't get sick to a point where you get up in the hospital. Or you're getting off the street where you don't know how you're going to react and what the outcome is going to be. Eventually having COVID with devastating, morbid outcome, or morbid or debilitating outcome. Now, what more people don't
let me ask you, Dr. Nelson, I apologize. Let me ask you a follow-up question, because you just made a very bold statement. I want to make sure everyone's hearing what you're saying. So you're saying if you take the vaccine, tops, you're going to have maybe little side effect, flu-like symptoms. But actually, and as everybody knows, J&J, Johnson & Johnson, was recalled because there were people who said they have blood clots from it. So what's your response to that? People are saying it's not just flu-like side effects, though. They're having blood clots. So what's your response, Dr. Nelson?
Well, true. Now, if you look at outside, we have two sciences that has produced the vaccine we have today. And I thank God again for the sciences. Going back to 1918, we didn't have this, we didn't have vaccines. Now we do. We're saving more lives. Now, the mRNA technology is one. If you look at that technology is new, even if it's new and people were apprehensive about that technology, guess what? Have we had any bad outcomes with the mRNA technology that Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna has done? No. Now, with the J&J, which is the vector-based vaccine, the same thing with the AstraZeneca, which we had, and was the same thing we had in the UK or Europe, where they had to stop it. In the UK, especially in the UK, they had about 28 million vaccines they were giving. Out of that 28 million vaccines, 242 had the blood clots that they talked about. Now, here in the United States, when the J&J was first allowed, what do you call it? Authorization was given in January up to, I think, April 15th or so. They had given about 6.8 million. Out of that 8.8 million, I think about 17 had the what do you call it, the blood clots. Now, when they allowed it, they looked at it and say, you know what, the risk versus the benefits outcome is so much better. So you guys can take it. But with a caveat that if you're age 40 or less, they won't recommend it, especially if you have higher risk for blood clots. You're a smoker, you take blood clotting, what do you call it, OCP, or you are morbidly obese with a higher risk or the family history. Those are the caveats. So if you have less than 40, you shouldn't take that with those caveats. Now, when they started, I think up to yesterday or 2 days ago, there are just about 28 cases reported so far. And out of about 8.7 million of those doses have been given. So if you do the statistics, it's about 0.0001% out of those who've given. Now, what's the statistics of the rate of you getting COVID if you don't take the vaccine at all, whether Johnson or Johnson? The question is out there. You make us your choice.
So, Dr. Nelson, let me say this, right? And Chris, I think I want to throw this question to you and Connie, and you guys can respond. And afterwards, we're going to take another break. I think this is the problem people are saying. Dr. Nelson, you said the J&J, Johnson & Johnson, is vector-based, right? And then the Pfizer is mRNA. So I just feel like there's just a lot of possibilities out there. Nothing is certain, and this is what is scaring people. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, it feels like nothing is definite. We're just test running a lot of different possibilities. Chris, Connie, what do you guys have to say to this? Maybe Chris, you can go then, Connie.
Yeah.
And very brief. We have only about 2-3 more minutes before we take a break. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you mentioned that if you don't take the vaccine, that you're going to get the virus. Is that like guaranteed? Is that in stone? And it doesn't seem like, if you look at the numbers, most people who get the virus don't have this morbid, dire straight reaction to it. It's like the reason people have their apprehensiveness is because of attitudes that way. It's not the other statistic is not given. Like, what's the possibility if I get this COVID vaccine or don't get it, that I will live and then nothing will really affect me? I mean, most people get a flu or cold. We're used to dealing with those type of things. And if you live a particularly healthy or pretty healthy lifestyle, your immune system is typically going to fight off a virus. A virus is something that comes in the body, is designed to fight virus. The human body is made to fight virus without having to take on. And with all the vaccines, especially when you're natively born in this country, they always are trying to pluck you with something. When is our body going to start rejecting that stuff? Yeah.
You know, I wish this was, I love it. No, I wish this was a Zoom call. We will go on and on, right? But this is a show we have to keep cutting. Dr. Nelson, quick response, 1 minute response, then we're going to take a break and come back to you, Connie, if you don't mind. What do you have to say to Chris? Just 1 minute. Dr. Nelson, very brief.
Well, yes, they're always bugging you about stuff. But the question is this. When's the last time you saw somebody with polio? When's the last time you saw somebody with measles? We don't. Because those things work. Vaccines work.
But they haven't. But there's been no cure to anything since polio.
You see, when you talk about what you said, right? It's individual. With this virus, it's not just about you alone. You can get the virus and you'll be fine, but you can pass it to your grandma, grandpa, uncle, who probably have issues, and they will die.
That's not my argument. That's not my argument. My argument is this.
Okay, you know what? Let's go. This is getting hot, Chris. We're gonna take a break. And we'll be right back. Okay? It's getting really hot.
Uche Akib. I am from Nigeria, the Igbo land. I'm so excited to read about the prophetic whirlwind because I'm Igbo and she had to go actually travel to the Igbo land to research about my tradition, my origin, my culture. So I want to really see and learn a lot about my culture, my tradition. So I'm really excited to read about this. And yeah, I would also advise that you get it too so you can know more about your origin. Thank you, Only Love, for all your hard work to make sure that we know more about ourselves.
Back again to the conversation. Can I just say it got really heated with Chris trying to go in, like leaving no stones untouched. But you know what? I want to shift gears a little bit because we're running significantly out of time. I'm hoping y'all can come back for part 2, right?
Definitely.
And we can maybe do something live on Facebook and just have a long, lengthy conversation. But for now, I think it's good that we have a studio production just to get people excited about the what's to come. So now I want to shift gears and ask this question. And Chris, maybe you can even tie it into what you were going to say before. I have heard people say behind the scene that it is possible that this vaccine will be mandatory. So what do you guys think? Should it be made mandatory? That's look at Kanye's face. That's a big argument, right? That's a big question. What do you think? I want to hear what you guys are thinking. Chris, you want to go ahead, and Kanye, then Dr. Nelson?
Yeah, I don't believe so at all. No, I don't believe it should be mandatory. I believe everyone should make a decision, their own personal decision. So I support Kanye 100%, and I again started my vaccination process. I did mine for the security of my grandmother, my mother. My brother had contracted COVID. He was worried about me, so it was bigger than just me, like Dr. Nelson was saying. But Connie has a different relationship. Her parents have been vaccinated. They may have an understanding that because they've been vaccinated, they feel safer. Connie not having the vaccine is not a threat to them because they've taken the precautions, where my family was a little more worried. Me being here in Texas, where it's a larger population. So I'm taking it, but I would never tell someone, yeah, you should take it, or, I do what I do to keep myself safe. And Connie, I hope, does the same.
Okay, Connie, what do you think? And then we can go to Dr. Nelson.
I think for me, it goes back to like the trust, like the government trust kind of thing. I don't feel that as a Latina, as a woman, I feel like everything is already so like regulated, what I should and shouldn't do and how I should and shouldn't be. And for me, I don't think that the government should make it mandatory to where it's something that I have to do, because it's my body, it's my decision. And like Chris said, everybody's doing what they think is appropriate for themselves and for what they believe in. And while, like I said, I believe in it for other people and other people can do that, I think for myself, like when it comes to the government getting involved and telling me that it's something that I have to do, that's where I kind of cut my ties, where I just can't go that route.
All right, so Connie, actually we have 1 minute, Dr. Nelson, only 1 minute. I cannot believe this. Okay, Dr. Nelson, final thoughts, and then we close out. 1 minute, final thoughts. And then we close out and come back again for part 2.
Well, no, it shouldn't be mandatory. The most important thing is informed consent. Informed. Okay. That's the most important thing. And I always tell people this: if you make somebody understand, they'll accept it. If I make you understand why you need to jump off the cliff, you will jump off the cliff. I don't need to put the gun in your head. You will do it yourself. So we need to make ourselves understand what it is. But at this stage, we need to understand that, look, there's a potential threat out there, a potential to the point where there are individuals who have very mild cases of COVID that have ended up with neuropsychiatric problems, ending up in the hospital. They never really presented with a really severe illness of COVID, but they have the neuropsychiatric problems that come up. So those are issues, again, that we need to think about. The whole conundrum is so huge, it'll take a much longer time to discuss a whole lot of things. But the essence is this: if I may go off, we as an individual must get informed, follow the science, look at those who are in your community, who are like you, who are doctors, who understand what the science is. Talk to them, let them teach you what this science is all about, so that you understand and accept it and go on to make the right decision.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nelson.
Technology was used to subjugate and colonize Africa, and our minds technology will be used to liberate us
To free
as
us.
a whole. Thank you.
All right, we have to go here. Guys, thank you so much for joining. Okay, stay tuned for part 2. Guys, thank you. I love you guys. Don't go when we end the broadcast, but thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure. I really appreciate you. And thank you guys for watching Conversations with Nia. Stay tuned, like we've all said, for part 2 and a longer conversation about COVID vaccine and minority communities. Thank you for watching. Thank you. Thank you to everyone who's watched the show today. Listen, I'm not here to convince you or not convince you to take the vaccine. I've heard people say that at some point it's going to be mandatory. Who knows? What I wanted to achieve for today's show is a conversation that is bigger than the vaccine, a conversation that highlights the distrust minority communities have for the government. Where does this stem from and why? I believe my guests unpacked the question in a way that is filled with knowledge, and I know you want to hear more. So I want to hear your thoughts on this issue. Why are minorities not taking the vaccine at a higher percentage? I look forward to hearing from all of you. Thank you again. God bless.